My fiancée announced we're having an open relationship so she could sleep with her lovers, but she immediately regretted it when the first person I slept with was her sister. Now she's in complete shock. Hey Reddit, I'm Tyler, 28 years old, and I honestly don't even know where to start with this absolute mess of a story. I never thought I'd be posting something like this online, but I really need to get this off my chest and maybe get some perspective from people who aren't directly involved in this drama. Fair warning, this is probably going to get pretty long, so I apologize in advance. I had been with my girlfriend Chloe, 25, for almost 3 years. We'd been living together for 2 of those years in this small apartment downtown. It wasn't anything fancy or Instagram-worthy, but it was our place, you know? We'd built a life there together. We'd been talking seriously about maybe buying a house together next year, looking at neighborhoods, discussing our future. Everything seemed solid between us, or at least I thought it was. I really believed this was it, that she was the one I was going to spend my life with. I was even secretly looking at engagement rings whenever she wasn't around. Yeah, I know how that sounds now, but at the time I was completely convinced we were heading toward marriage. I had started saving up, doing research on what kind of ring she might like, planning how I might propose. Looking back, I feel pretty stupid for being so invested in a future she was already planning to blow up. Then last month, she hit me with some news that completely changed everything and turned my world upside down. We were having a late dinner on a Tuesday night after I'd gotten home from an extended shift at work. She'd ordered Chinese takeout for us. Hadn't even bothered to set the table properly, just had the containers scattered across our coffee table. I should have known something was up because she'd been acting weird all week. She'd been constantly glued to her phone, smiling at text messages in a way that seemed different from her usual social media browsing. Then she'd quickly hide the screen whenever I walked by or tried to see what was making her so happy. I definitely noticed this behavior, but I kept my mouth shut about it because I didn't want to seem paranoid or controlling. I figured if something was really wrong, she'd tell me about it eventually. After I'd taken just a few bites of my lo mein, she cleared her throat dramatically and put down her phone with this deliberate motion. Her face had this rehearsed seriousness to it, like she'd been practicing what she was about to say in the mirror. That's when she dropped the bombshell that would destroy our relationship. She told me she'd been doing a lot of thinking lately and had come to realize that she was polyamorous. The noodles literally stuck in my throat as I processed what she was saying. I just sat there staring at her while she launched into this whole prepared speech about how monogamy was just a social construct that society had imposed on us. According to her, she'd been suppressing her true, authentic self for years by being in an exclusive relationship with me. She claimed she needed the freedom to explore emotional and physical connections with other people, but she was quick to insist that it didn't mean she loved me any less than before. The whole time she was delivering this speech, her eyes kept darting back to her phone screen like she was expecting some important message to come through. It was obvious to me that there had to be someone specific already in the picture. Guys don't just get this kind of prepared speech about polyamory out of nowhere. There's always a catalyst, always someone waiting in the wings. There's someone else, isn't there? I finally managed to ask, cutting through her philosophical justifications. She immediately looked offended by my question, like I was being crude and missing the deeper point she was trying to make. This isn't about any specific person, Tyler, she insisted with this self-righteous tone. This is about me discovering my authentic self and what I need to be truly fulfilled. Who is it? I pressed because I wasn't buying her deflection for a second. After dancing around my question for a few more minutes, clearly uncomfortable with my directness, she finally admitted the truth. Fine, she said with obvious reluctance. Blake and I have been talking again. Blake, her ex-boyfriend. So let me get this straight, I said to her. You've been talking to your ex-boyfriend behind my back, having secret conversations and reconnecting, and now suddenly you've discovered you're polyamorous? The timing seemed pretty fucking convenient to me. We're just reconnecting as friends, she insisted, but her voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. But yes, there might be some feelings there that I want to explore. That doesn't mean I love you any less or that what we have isn't important to me. When I pointed out that what she was basically asking for was permission to cheat on me with her ex while keeping me around as her safety net, she got completely defensive. She said I was being reductive and crude, that I was taking something beautiful and meaningful and turning it into something ugly. She insisted that I could also explore connections with other people if I wanted to, like that somehow made it all fair and equal. Yeah, right. This wasn't about me having options or exploring my sexuality. This was transparently about her wanting to be with Blake while keeping me as her backup plan, her source of stability and financial security while she played around. And if I say no to all this, I asked, dreading the answer but needing to hear it. She straightened up in her chair and looked me directly in the eyes with this cold determination I'd never seen from her before. Then you're choosing to limit my personal growth and autonomy, she said matter-of-factly. I'm doing this with or without your permission, Tyler. I just hoped you'd be evolved enough to grow with me on this journey. So there it was. My choice wasn't really a choice at all. Except her cheating on me with her ex or get dumped, some fucking choice that was. Luna showed up to our coffee meeting looking way more put together than I felt at that moment. She has this naturally calm, confident vibe about her that's the complete opposite of Chloe's constant need for drama and attention. I almost chickened out of telling her the real reason I'd wanted to meet up, but after some awkward small talk about work and the weather, I decided to just lay it all out there and be honest. So Chloe told me she's polyamorous now, I said, making exaggerated air quotes around the word polyamorous, because the whole concept still felt ridiculous to me. Luna raised an eyebrow with this knowing expression. Seriously? Yeah, she wants to start seeing her ex again, Blake, the tattoo guy who never had a real job. She rolled her eyes in a way that told me everything I needed to know about her opinion of Blake. Shocking, she said with heavy sarcasm. I explained the whole situation to her, how Chloe had sprung this bombshell on me completely out of nowhere, the ultimatum she'd given me about accepting it or limiting her personal growth, the whole "it's just who I am" speech she'd delivered like she was announcing a religious conversion. Luna didn't seem surprised by any of it, which was both validating and depressing. She just sat there sipping her latte and nodding along like she was hearing exactly what she'd expected to hear. You're not shocked by any of this? I asked her. Tyler, this is classic Chloe behavior, she replied matter-of-factly. She wants what she wants, and she'll find a way to make it sound like some kind of philosophical position or spiritual journey, instead of just admitting that she's being selfish. According to Luna, Chloe had actually been planning this whole thing for months. She'd apparently confided in their cousin Katie about reconnecting with an old flame way back in March, 4 months ago. This was while I was helping her mother move to a new apartment, while I was covering all of our rent because she'd decided to quit her job without having anything else lined up so she could find her passion and figure out what she really wanted to do with her life. So what are you going to do? Luna asked me directly. I shrugged, feeling defeated. Break up with her, I guess. What else can I do? She gave me this look like she was carefully measuring me up, trying to decide something important. You could get even, she said slowly. What do you mean? She wants to see other people while keeping you on standby as her safety net, Luna explained, leaning forward slightly. Fine, 2 can play that game. I thought she was just suggesting that I should also start dating around, maybe download some apps and try to meet other people. But Luna had something much more specific in mind, and her next words completely caught me off guard. She told me that Thanksgiving was coming up at their dad's house in just a few weeks, and Chloe had already announced to the family that she was planning to bring a special guest to dinner. It was almost certainly going to be Blake, which had the entire family dreading the holiday because apparently Blake had stolen money from their father years ago and then denied it when confronted. But what if you showed up too? Luna suggested, her voice taking on this conspiratorial tone. With me? I nearly choked on my coffee. With you? Like with you? Why not? She said, like it was the most logical thing in the world. We've always gotten along really well. You're objectively attractive. I'm newly single after my divorce, and it would absolutely destroy her to see her boyfriend with her sister. Ex-boyfriend, I corrected her automatically. At least that's what she's calling me now with this whole polyamory thing. Even better, Luna said with a grin. At first, I honestly thought she was joking around, maybe just trying to cheer me up with some dark humor. But as she continued explaining her reasoning, I realized she was completely serious about this suggestion. This wasn't just about helping me get some kind of revenge against Chloe for what she'd done to me. Luna had her own scores to settle with her sister, years of accumulated resentment that had never been properly addressed. Every time I try to just move on and live my life peacefully, Luna said, her voice getting more intense, she finds a way to mess with it somehow. Maybe it's time she learned what that feels like for once. I sat there processing everything she'd just proposed, my mind racing through all the possible implications and consequences. Part of me knew this was an absolutely terrible idea. Dating your girlfriend's sister purely for revenge? That was some serious soap opera level drama that could blow up in spectacular fashion. But another part of me, the part that was still reeling from Chloe's betrayal and feeling hurt and angry about how she'd manipulated our entire relationship, was thinking it might be the perfect response to her ultimatum. She wanted to play games with people's emotions? Well, I could play games too. I could play. Wouldn't this just prove her point, though? I asked, trying to think through the logic. About monogamy being outdated or whatever philosophical bullshit she's spouting? Luna shook her head firmly. No, because you're not claiming to be polyamorous or trying to have multiple relationships at once. You're just moving on to someone who actually respects you and values exclusivity. There's a big difference between that and what she's doing. I thought about it some more, considering all the ways this could go wrong. Your dad would completely freak out. Dad knows exactly what Chloe is like, Luna assured me. He'll be shocked at first, sure, but he'll get over it. Besides, he actually likes you, which is more than I can say for most of the guys she's brought around. This is completely crazy, I said. But even as the words came out of my mouth, I was already kind of warming up to the idea. Crazier than your girlfriend suddenly deciding she's polyamorous so she can bang her ex with your permission? Luna countered. She definitely had a point there. We ended up talking for hours at that coffee shop, way longer than either of us had originally planned. What had started as what I thought would be a quick revenge plotting session gradually morphed into a genuine, meaningful conversation about our lives. I found myself learning more about Luna in those few hours than I had in all the years of knowing her peripherally through Chloe and family gatherings. She opened up to me about her divorce, explaining how her ex-husband had cheated on her with a co-worker from his office. The parallels to my own situation weren't lost on either of us. She told me about her job as a pediatric nurse at the children's hospital, how rewarding but emotionally draining it could be. She shared her plans to go back to school to get her master's degree so she could eventually move into a more administrative role that would give her better work-life balance. I found myself telling her things about my own life that I rarely discussed with anyone. My work as an analyst, my family back in Wisconsin, and how much I missed them sometimes. My dream of eventually opening my own consulting business someday once I had enough experience and capital saved up. We talked about books we'd read, places we wanted to travel, our thoughts on everything from politics to what makes a good pizza. As I walked home that evening, I felt genuinely conflicted about everything. Part of me was excited about the prospect of getting to know Luna better as a person, beyond just this revenge scheme we'd cooked up. She was intelligent, funny, and refreshingly straightforward in a way that felt like a breath of fresh air after years of Chloe's emotional manipulation and drama. But part of me also felt guilty, like I was somehow doing something fundamentally wrong or unethical. Even though Chloe had betrayed our relationship first, even though she'd been planning this polyamory thing for months behind my back, there was still this nagging voice in my head telling me that pursuing her sister was crossing some kind of line. But then I forced myself to remember Chloe's face as she'd delivered that ultimatum to me. The cold, calculated way she'd planned this whole thing out. How she'd been planning it for months while I was covering her expenses and helping her family. The way she'd made it clear that she was going to do this with or without my consent. She had fundamentally changed the rules of our relationship without even consulting me first. Now I was just adapting to play by her new rulebook. If she wanted to open up our relationship and explore other connections, then that's exactly what I was going to do too. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, Chloe was completely oblivious to any of this happening. When I got home that evening, she was in the bedroom getting ready for another date with Blake. She was wearing a dress that I recognized, one that I had bought for her as a gift for our second anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me. "How do I look?" she asked, doing a little twirl in front of the mirror like she was modeling for me. "Great," I said as flatly as possible, not wanting to give her the satisfaction of a more enthusiastic response. "I'm going to grab dinner with a friend tonight, so don't wait up for me," I told her casually. She looked genuinely surprised by this announcement. I'd been mostly moping around the apartment like a wounded puppy ever since her polyamory revelation, so the idea of me being social was apparently unexpected. "Oh, that's really good for you. Who are you meeting?" she asked with what seemed like genuine curiosity. "Just someone from work," I lied smoothly. "I thought I'd take your advice and start being more social, maybe expand my social circle a bit." She smiled at me like she was proud of herself for being such a positive influence on my personal growth. "That's fantastic, Tyler. See, I told you that opening up our relationship was going to be good for both of us. You're already becoming more independent and socially active." If she only knew who I was really planning to meet with the following night. But she'd find out soon enough, and I had a strong feeling that her enthusiasm for opening up our relationship was about to be seriously tested once she discovered the specific connection I was interested in exploring. The next day, Luna and I went hiking together. I told Chloe I was going on a group hike with some people from my office, which wasn't technically true, but wasn't completely false either. It was just that the group consisted of exactly one person, and she wasn't from my office. She barely looked up from her phone as I was getting ready to leave, probably too busy texting with Blake about their workout plans or whatever other couple activities they were planning. Her lack of interest in my activities was actually helpful for maintaining the deception, but it also stung a little bit. After 3 years together, she couldn't even be bothered to ask basic questions about what I was doing with my time. Meeting up with Luna for the hike was surprisingly comfortable and natural. She showed up wearing actual proper hiking clothes, moisture-wicking fabric, supportive shoes, a backpack with supplies. This was in stark contrast to Chloe, who would always insist on wearing impractical but cute outfits whenever we did outdoor activities, because she was more concerned with getting good photos for Instagram than actually enjoying the experience. Luna had packed a proper backpack with plenty of water and trail mix and was genuinely ready for a real hike. The entire experience was refreshing. She didn't need to stop every 5 minutes to take selfies or rearrange her hair for photos. She brought actual trail mix made with nuts and dried fruit, not just some photogenic fruit arrangement in a special container designed to look good on social media. She kept up with me easily on the steep parts of the trail and didn't complain once about being tired or uncomfortable. We talked the entire time, about everything and nothing, and I found myself genuinely enjoying her company in a way that had nothing to do with revenge or getting back at Chloe. After that day, things between Luna and me moved surprisingly quickly. We started seeing each other whenever Chloe was out with Blake, which turned out to be most evenings and weekends. It was like Chloe had completely checked out of our relationship and was throwing herself full force into this new thing with her ex. The contrast between the two sisters became more apparent with every interaction I had with Luna. She was refreshingly direct and honest about everything. She didn't play mind games or expect me to read between the lines to figure out what she was really thinking. When she said she'd call me, she actually called. When she was upset or bothered by something, she would just tell me directly instead of giving me the silent treatment and expecting me to somehow figure out what I'd done wrong. It was honestly like dating an actual adult for the first time in my life. With Chloe, everything had always been this elaborate emotional puzzle that I was constantly trying to solve, walking on eggshells and second-guessing myself. But with Luna, communication was straightforward and honest. If she had a problem, she'd address it. If she was happy about something, she'd express it. It was such a relief to not have to constantly analyze every interaction for hidden meanings or potential landmines. After about 3 weeks of living this double life, I decided it was time to start gradually moving my stuff out of the apartment I shared with Chloe. I couldn't do it all at once because that would definitely tip her off that something major was happening, but I could start removing things slowly and strategically. I began with small items, a few shirts here, some books there, my good winter jacket, some electronics. I told Chloe that I was decluttering as part of my emotional growth journey, getting rid of things that no longer served me as I evolved into this new version of myself. She absolutely ate this explanation up, thinking that I was genuinely embracing her new age polyamory lifestyle and working on my own personal development. "I'm so proud of you for embracing change like this," she said one night after noticing that about half of my clothes were missing from our shared closet. "This is exactly what personal evolution looks like, letting go of material attachments and old patterns that hold you back." What personal evolution actually looked like in reality was me quietly moving most of my belongings to Luna's apartment across town. We weren't officially living together yet. That would have been way too fast, even given the unusual circumstances of how we'd gotten together. But I was staying over at her place more nights than not, and it felt natural and comfortable in a way that surprised me. I told Chloe that I needed some space and time alone to process all the changes happening in our relationship. She was so completely wrapped up in her rekindled romance with Blake that she barely seemed to notice I was gone most of the time anyway. She'd come home from her dates glowing and excited, eager to tell me about all the deep conversations she and Blake were having about art and consciousness and whatever other pretentious topics they discussed. Finally, Thanksgiving Day arrived. Luna and I had carefully planned our strategy. I would drive to her dad's house separately from her, partly so she could get there first and establish her presence with the family, and partly because we figured we might need separate escape vehicles if the whole thing exploded into complete chaos. Chloe had absolutely no idea that I was planning to show up. As far as she knew, I was spending the holiday alone at our apartment, probably eating sad takeout and reflecting on my personal growth journey. That morning, she'd even sent me a text message that said, "Thinking of you today. Enjoy your quiet day alone." I didn't bother responding to it. Instead, I was busy picking out a shirt that Luna had told me looked particularly good on me and trying to calm my nerves about what was about to happen. Yeah, I was nervous as hell about the whole thing. Not just about the inevitable confrontation with Chloe when she realized what was happening, but also about meeting Luna's family in my new role as her boyfriend instead of as Chloe's long-term partner. Talk about an awkward social situation. I arrived at the house about 30 minutes after Luna had gotten there, which gave her time to settle in and prepare the family for what was about to happen. My hands were literally sweaty as I rang the doorbell, holding a bottle of wine that I'd brought as a gift for the host. Luna's dad opened the door looking surprised but not unhappy to see me. "Tyler, what are you doing here? Come in," he said warmly, stepping aside to let me into the house. I stepped inside and immediately started scanning the room for Chloe, my heart pounding with anticipation. She was sitting on the couch next to a guy I could only assume was Blake. He was tall and lean with those stupid little stick-and-poke tattoos scattered across his knuckles, exactly the kind of guy I'd imagined based on Chloe's descriptions. He looked exactly like the type of person who probably owned way too many crystals and talked constantly about his energy work and spiritual practices. Chloe's face when she saw me walk through the door was absolutely priceless. I watched her expression transform in real time. First, there was confusion as she tried to process why I was there, then shock as the reality of the situation hit her, and finally this weird, forced smile as she tried to play it cool and act like everything was totally normal. "Tyler, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice tight with barely controlled tension. Before I could answer her question, Luna walked in from the kitchen where she'd been helping with the meal preparation. She was wiping her hands on a dish towel and walked straight over to me with this confident, purposeful stride. Then she did something that I'll never forget as long as I live. She slid her arm around my waist and leaned against me in a way that made it absolutely crystal clear to everyone in the room that we weren't just friends or casual acquaintances. The gesture was intimate and possessive and unmistakably romantic. "You're late," she said, speaking just loud enough for everyone in the room to hear her clearly. "I was starting to worry about you." The entire room went completely dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Chloe's face transformed from that forced pleasantness to pure, undiluted rage in about 2 seconds flat. It was like watching someone flip a switch. All pretense of being cool and evolved just vanished completely. "What is this?" she practically shrieked, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. Luna's dad looked back and forth between his two daughters, clearly bewildered by the sudden tension that had filled the room. "Language, Chloe," he said automatically. "And what do you mean?" "Tyler's family, of course he's welcome here." "With her? My sister?" Chloe's voice was getting higher and more hysterical with each word. "Are you kidding me right now?" Blake, who clearly had absolutely no idea what he'd walked into or what the family dynamics were, was just sitting there on the couch looking uncomfortable as hell. He kept glancing around the room like he was trying to figure out if he should say something or just quietly disappear. Good, I was glad he felt awkward and out of place. Luna, meanwhile, maintained her calm composure and explained the situation in the most matter-of-fact way possible. Since Chloe had discovered that she was polyamorous and needed the freedom to explore connections with other people, she said, Tyler was naturally free to explore his own connections as well. It was exactly what Chloe had wanted, wasn't it? Chloe completely lost her shit at this explanation. She screamed that this was completely different, that polyamory didn't include dating your partner's family members, that there were supposed to be boundaries and rules about these things. I finally spoke up for the first time since walking into this disaster. "You're seeing your ex-boyfriend," I pointed out calmly. "So we're both just exploring our authentic selves and following our hearts. Isn't that exactly what you wanted?" The family members who had gathered for dinner were completely silent, just watching this train wreck unfold in real time. Luna's aunt and uncle were frozen mid-drink, like they were afraid to move and draw attention to themselves. Her teenage cousins had their phones out and were clearly recording everything that was happening. That video probably made it to TikTok before we even served dessert. Luna's dad cleared his throat loudly, trying to regain some control over the situation. "Polyamorous, Chloe, what exactly is Tyler talking about here?" And that's when the shit really hit the fan in spectacular fashion. Chloe tried to explain the concept of polyamory to her conservative, traditional father while simultaneously having a complete emotional meltdown about me dating her sister. Blake attempted to introduce himself to the family and got completely ignored by everyone. Luna casually went back to the kitchen to check on something in the oven, acting like this level of family drama was perfectly normal for a holiday gathering. "So you're cheating on Tyler with this guy?" her dad asked directly, pointing at Blake, who looked like he wanted to crawl under the couch and disappear entirely. "It's not cheating if everyone consents to the arrangement," Chloe shouted back, her face getting redder by the minute. "This is about ethical non-monogamy and authentic relationship structures." Luna returned from the kitchen at exactly the right moment and decided to drop another bomb. "Did Tyler actually consent to this arrangement, though?" she asked innocently. "Or did you just announce that you were doing it, regardless of how he felt about it?" Chloe literally stomped her foot like a child having a tantrum. "This is sabotage," she screamed. "You've always been jealous of me, Luna. First you stole Dad's attention with your perfect grades and academic achievements. Then you got the college fund that should have been split equally between us. And now you're trying to steal my boyfriend." "Ex-boyfriend," I corrected her firmly, "since you decided we should see other people and explore different relationship structures." What followed was basically a full-scale family therapy session, except without an actual therapist to mediate. Old grievances that had been buried for years got dragged up and aired out in front of everyone. Not just the recent issues between Chloe and Luna, but deeper family history. Their parents' messy divorce, the drama around their mother's funeral that I'd heard about. That time Chloe had borrowed Luna's car without permission and returned it with significant damage that she'd never paid to repair. The entire family's dysfunction was getting put on display right there in the living room, and poor Blake was just sitting in the middle of it all, looking like he'd rather be literally anywhere else on earth. At one point, Chloe turned to me with actual tears streaming down her face. "I can't believe you would do this to me," she said, her voice breaking. "With her, of all people. My own sister." "I didn't do anything to you," I replied as calmly as I could manage. "You fundamentally changed our relationship without my consent or input. I'm just adapting to the new rules that you created." The tension in the room was so thick you could practically cut it with a knife. Everyone was on edge, walking on eggshells, trying not to make the situation even worse than it already was. Thankfully, Luna's dad stepped in and suggested that we all sit down for dinner before the food got completely cold. He was clearly trying to restore some semblance of normalcy to what was supposed to be a family holiday. Somehow, we all ended up around the dining room table, though Chloe spent the entire meal shooting daggers at Luna and me while barely touching any of the food on her plate. Every single attempt someone made to start a neutral, safe conversation topic would somehow circle back to the elephant in the room. The most awkward moment came when Luna's teenage cousin, with the blunt honesty that only teenagers possess, asked how Blake and I both felt about sharing a girlfriend. This question made Chloe literally choke on her drink and caused Blake to turn bright red with embarrassment. After what felt like the longest and most uncomfortable dinner of my entire life, people started dispersing to different parts of the house, probably just grateful for an excuse to escape the dining room tension. That's when Chloe cornered me in the hallway as I was coming back from the bathroom. "Can we please talk privately?" she asked, her voice much quieter now, almost pleading. Against my better judgment, I agreed to hear what she had to say. We stepped into an empty bedroom and she closed the door behind us. "What are you doing, Tyler?" she asked as soon as we were alone. "Is this some kind of sick joke? Some elaborate way to hurt me?" "No joke," I told her firmly. "Luna and I are together now. This is real." "But she's my sister," she said, like that somehow made it off limits. "Half-sister," I corrected her. "Half-sister who you haven't spoken to in years. Half-sister who you've treated like complete shit her entire life." She flinched at my words like I'd physically slapped her. "That's not fair. Life isn't fair," I shot back. "You wanted polyamory, remember? This is what it looks like when other people get to make choices too." She asked me how long this thing between Luna and me had been going on. When I told her it had been about 3 weeks, she was absolutely shocked that we were already at the point of attending family Thanksgiving dinner together. She accused us of moving incredibly fast just to hurt her, claiming that we were rushing the relationship purely out of spite. I insisted that not everything in the world revolved around her and her feelings. Luna and I had discovered that we had a genuine connection, something real that had developed naturally between us. "Real?" She laughed bitterly, and there was no humor in the sound at all. "You're dating her to get back at me, and she's dating you specifically to hurt me too. That's not real, Tyler. That's just revenge dressed up as a relationship." "Maybe that's how it started," I admitted, because there was no point in lying about our initial motivations. "But it's become something else entirely, something genuine." She stepped closer to me and put her hand on my arm in what I recognized as one of her classic manipulation moves. "Tyler, come on, this is completely crazy," she said, her voice taking on that soft, persuasive tone she used when she wanted something. "We've been together for 3 years. We've built a life together. Are you really going to throw all of that away for some revenge fling with my sister?" I removed her hand from my arm deliberately. "No, Chloe, you threw it away when you decided you wanted to sleep with Blake, whether I agreed to it or not. Remember?" Her face hardened as she realized that her manipulation tactics weren't going to work this time. "Fine," she said coldly. "Have your little revenge fantasy, but don't come crawling back to me when she gets bored of you and moves on to someone else." "Trust me," I replied, "I won't." The rest of the evening was tense, but mercifully less explosive than the earlier confrontation. People were clearly walking on eggshells, trying to avoid any topics that might set off another round of family drama. Eventually, Chloe grabbed Blake's arm and announced dramatically that they were leaving. "This family is toxic and completely unsupportive," she declared to the room in general, like she was delivering some kind of grand pronouncement. "I can't be around this negative energy anymore." As they were walking toward the door, Luna called after her sweetly, "Don't forget your emotional support water bottle." Chloe had this ridiculously expensive $50 water bottle with "Hydrate Your Soul" written on it in flowing script that she took everywhere with her, treating it like some kind of spiritual talisman. It was exactly the kind of pretentious accessory that perfectly summed up her personality. Chloe turned around and flipped us off before slamming the door behind them, making sure everyone knew exactly how she felt about the situation. After they left, Luna's dad sat down heavily on the couch and let out a long sigh. "Well," he said with considerable understatement, "that was certainly unexpected." "Sorry about all the drama," I said, feeling genuinely bad that our relationship reveal had completely hijacked what was supposed to be a peaceful family holiday. He waved off my apology. "Not your fault, Tyler," he said kindly. "Though I have to say, dating one daughter and then switching to the other is certainly an unconventional approach to relationships." We stayed for another hour or so, helping to clean up the kitchen and trying to restore some sense of normalcy to the day. When Luna and I finally decided to leave, I felt completely emotionally exhausted but also strangely relieved. The bomb had been dropped, the fallout had begun, and somehow Luna and I were still standing together in the aftermath. As we stood by our cars in the driveway, preparing to drive back to her apartment, Luna reached over and squeezed my hand. "Well," she said with a slight smile, "that went exactly as I expected it would." I had to laugh despite everything. "Complete disaster. Total shit show," she agreed cheerfully. "But kind of worth it, right?" I nodded, surprised to realize that I meant it. Absolutely worth it. Little did we know at the time that the real drama was just beginning. What had happened at Thanksgiving dinner was just the opening act. The aftermath was going to be much worse than either of us had anticipated. The fallout from Thanksgiving turned out to be worse than I had expected, and that's saying something considering how spectacularly the dinner had gone. It turns out that when you drop a nuclear bomb on someone's life like we had done to Chloe, the radiation tends to stick around for quite a while afterward. Who knew? Chloe absolutely blew up my phone that night. I'm talking 37 missed calls and about 100 text messages, ranging from angry accusations like, "How could you do this to me?" to tearful pleading messages like, "Please just talk to me, we can work this out," to outright threatening ones like, "I'm going to tell everyone what a manipulative jerk you really are." I ended up blocking her number, but that didn't stop her from escalating her attempts to contact me. She started emailing me from multiple different accounts. She used her friends' phones to try calling me. She even tried to reach me through LinkedIn of all places, sending me professional messages that were thinly veiled personal attacks. I systematically blocked her everywhere I could think of, but she was persistent and creative in finding new ways to get through to me. The next day, while Chloe was at work, I went back to our shared apartment to collect the rest of my belongings. I had already moved most of the important stuff to Luna's place over the previous few weeks, but there were still some clothes, books, and electronics that I needed to retrieve. I packed everything up in about an hour, working quickly and efficiently. When I was done, I left my key on the kitchen counter along with a note that said, "Thanks for suggesting polyamory. Never would have found Luna otherwise. Don't worry about the rent. I paid your half through February. Consider it a parting gift." Maybe that was a little petty of me, but I figured after everything she'd put me through, I'd earned the right to a little pettiness. Besides, I wanted to make it crystal clear that I wasn't coming back and that this chapter of my life was completely closed. I thought that would be the end of our direct interactions. I was completely wrong about that. 2 days after Thanksgiving, Chloe showed up at Luna's apartment unannounced. Luna wasn't home yet from her shift at the hospital, but I was there relaxing and trying to decompress from all the recent drama. I saw Chloe's car pull up through the window and seriously considered pretending I wasn't home, maybe hiding in the bedroom until she gave up and left. But I figured it was probably better to face this head-on and get it over with rather than prolonging the inevitable confrontation. When I opened the door, Chloe looked absolutely terrible. Her eyes were puffy and red from what had clearly been hours of crying. Her hair was a complete mess, unwashed and tangled. She was wearing sweatpants and an oversized hoodie, which was shocking because she normally wouldn't be caught dead in public wearing anything that wasn't carefully coordinated and Instagram ready. "You're a piece of shit," she said as soon as I opened the door, getting straight to the point without any pleasantries. "You don't get to play the victim here, Chloe," I replied with a sigh. "You fundamentally changed the rules of our relationship without even asking me how I felt about it." "So this is punishment then? Dating my sister?" she shot back accusingly. "No, this is me moving on with my life," I explained patiently. "You wanted polyamory and the freedom to explore other connections. I wanted you, just you exclusively. When I couldn't have that anymore, I found someone who actually wants the same thing I want, a committed monogamous relationship." "This isn't over," she said ominously as she turned to leave. But she paused at the bottom of the steps and turned back around one more time. "You'll regret this, both of you. I promise you that." I told Luna about this unpleasant encounter when she got home from work that evening. She wasn't surprised by Chloe's behavior at all. Apparently, this kind of dramatic confrontation and vague threatening was absolutely typical for her sister when things didn't go her way. Luna suggested that we should probably be careful for a while, and maybe avoid places where Chloe might show up unexpectedly, like our old favorite restaurants or the gym we used to go to together. We didn't have to wait very long to find out what Chloe had meant by "this isn't over." Later that same week, she went completely nuclear on social media, posting this incredibly long melodramatic rant about how her abusive ex-boyfriend had seduced her vulnerable, recently divorced sister as an act of revenge against her. She wrote about how I was weaponizing polyamory concepts and slut-shaming her for exploring her authentic sexuality and relationship needs. What she conveniently left out of her public narrative was the part where she had sprung the polyamory thing on me completely out of nowhere, or the fact that she had been planning this whole thing for months behind my back while I was supporting her financially and emotionally. She also failed to mention that she had given me an ultimatum: accept her cheating or be accused of limiting her personal growth. Most people who knew the real situation saw right through her victim act. But a few of her more devoted friends and followers jumped into the comment section to attack me personally, calling me controlling and manipulative and worse. I didn't bother responding to any of it. There was no point in getting into a public argument that would just give her more attention and drama to feed off of. Luna and I decided to take the high road. We just posted a single photo of ourselves at the art museum looking genuinely happy together. No dramatic caption, no explanation, no defensive statements. The picture spoke for itself. The social media drama died down after a few days when people moved on to other things, but Chloe wasn't done with her campaign against us. She started telling our mutual friends a completely revised version of our relationship history, painting me as controlling and manipulative throughout our entire 3 years together. According to her new narrative, I had systematically isolated her from her friends and family members, which was completely false. She had cut off most people in her life herself because she claimed they were toxic or didn't understand her growth journey. She also started spreading the story that I was somehow turning Luna against her, as if Luna needed any help disliking Chloe after years of her selfish, narcissistic behavior. Some of our mutual friends actually bought into these lies, which was disappointing but not entirely surprising. People I thought knew me better than that started sending me concerned messages, asking for my side of the story, as if dating someone's sister after they cheated on you was somehow morally equivalent to the cheating itself. I didn't bother defending myself to most of these people. The ones who really mattered and truly knew my character already understood the truth of what had happened. The rest could believe whatever version of events they preferred. I wasn't going to waste my energy trying to convince people who had already made up their minds. About 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, Luna got an interesting phone call from her cousin Katie. It turned out that Blake was actually seeing at least 2 other women while he was supposedly in this committed polyamorous relationship with Chloe. Apparently, his version of ethical non-monogamy was even more evolved than Chloe's. He wasn't bothering to tell any of his partners about the others. "Should we tell her what's happening?" Luna asked me after relaying this information. "Not our circus, not our monkeys," I replied. I figured Chloe had made her bed and could lie in it. Besides, she probably wouldn't believe us anyway if we tried to warn her. But as it turned out, Chloe found out about Blake's other relationships on her own. Blake posted pictures on his Instagram with another woman, not even trying to hide it or be discreet about it. Chloe completely lost her shit in the comments section, ranting about how they had agreed on ethical communication and transparency, and that he was doing polyamory wrong. The irony was completely lost on her. Here she was, shocked and outraged that the guy who had a history of cheating on his previous girlfriends was also being dishonest with her, even within the context of their supposedly open relationship. It was like watching someone express surprise that water is wet. The only truly surprising part was how genuinely surprised she seemed by this completely predictable betrayal. Blake was exactly the kind of person who would interpret polyamory as permission to cheat without consequences, and anyone with half a brain could have seen that coming from a mile away. As for Luna and me, things were going really well between us. I know it probably sounds weird to hear that, given the unusual and somewhat vindictive circumstances of how we got together. But once the initial revenge motivation faded into the background, we discovered that we actually worked together incredibly well as a couple. She was straightforward and honest in all her communications. She didn't play mind games or expect me to read between the lines to figure out what she was thinking. She treated me like an equal partner in the relationship, instead of like some kind of accessory to her life or source of validation for her ego. About a month after Thanksgiving, we were lying in bed together watching a movie when my phone buzzed with yet another email notification. It was from Chloe, sent from yet another new email account that I hadn't blocked yet. "You going to read it?" Luna asked, noticing my reluctance to check the message. I sighed and opened the email. It was characteristically long, like 5 full paragraphs detailing how she had made a terrible mistake with the whole polyamory thing. She wrote about how Blake had shown her what real betrayal actually felt like, and how she had come to realize that monogamy was her authentic truth after all. She said she would be willing to forgive me if I ended things with Luna and came back to her so we could rebuild our relationship. I showed the email to Luna, who read through it silently and then started laughing. God, she's so predictable, Luna said, shaking her head. First, she wants complete freedom to do whatever she wants. Then when she gets burned by her own choices, suddenly she wants the security and stability back. What should I say to her? I asked. Luna grinned mischievously. Nothing. Or we could send a joint response, just a photo of us in front of our new place with a caption that says, "Thanks for setting us up, best decision you ever made." We didn't actually send that response because there was no need to poke the bear unnecessarily. But it felt good to laugh about the whole situation instead of getting angry or upset by Chloe's continued attempts at manipulation. The whole experience made me realize just how genuinely unhappy I had been with Chloe for a very long time. It wasn't just the polyamory bombshell that had destroyed our relationship. That was merely the final straw that broke the camel's back. Looking back with clear eyes, I could see all the little ways she had systematically made me feel inadequate and insecure throughout our entire relationship. There were the constant comparisons she would make between me and her various ex-boyfriends, always framed as innocent observations, but clearly designed to make me feel like I wasn't measuring up to some impossible standard. There was the way she would dismiss my interests and hobbies as boring or childish whenever I tried to share them with her. The emotional manipulation tactics she would use whenever she wanted something. The guilt trips, the silent treatments, the way she would weaponize her tears to get her way. With Luna, I felt like I could actually be myself without constantly worrying about whether that version of me was good enough for her. Not some carefully curated version of myself designed to meet her expectations and avoid her criticism, but actually just me. My authentic, unfiltered personality. And Luna seemed to genuinely like that guy just fine, flaws and all. Then came what I can only describe as the apartment wars. I had been staying at Luna's place most nights for weeks now, but technically I was still on the lease with Chloe until the end of February. She decided to use this legal technicality as an excuse to mess with me in increasingly petty ways. First, she changed all the streaming service passwords, locking me out of Netflix, Hulu, and Spotify accounts that I had been paying for. Then she accidentally broke my expensive gaming headset that I had left behind in the apartment. She started throwing away mail that came addressed to me, claiming she forgot to mention that packages had been delivered. It was all relatively small, petty stuff, but it was annoying and clearly designed to make my life more difficult. I wasn't too worried about it since I had already moved all my important belongings to Luna's place, but it was still frustrating to deal with her continued attempts at revenge. But then Chloe decided to escalate things significantly. She contacted my mother directly. My mom called me one evening sounding genuinely concerned and confused. "Tyler, is everything okay with you?" she asked. "I just got the strangest phone call from Chloe. She was crying and telling me that you're involved in some sort of cult-like polyamorous relationship situation." I nearly choked on my drink. "What?" "She said you're involved with multiple women now and that it's some kind of commune situation where everyone is sleeping with everyone else. She seemed really worried about you and said she thought you might be in some kind of psychological danger." I had to explain the entire situation to my mother from the beginning. How Chloe had wanted to see other people, specifically her ex-boyfriend Blake, how I had started dating Luna instead, and how Chloe was now spinning the story to make herself look like a concerned victim rather than the person who had blown up our relationship in the first place. My mom was quiet for a long time while she processed this information. "So let me get this straight," she finally said. "Chloe wanted to cheat on you with permission, and when you broke up with her and started dating her sister instead, now she's mad about it?" "That's a pretty accurate summary, yeah," I confirmed. "And how is Luna treating you?" she asked. "Really well, actually. We're genuinely happy together." There was another pause while my mother considered this. "Well then, bring her to dinner on Sunday," she said decisively. "I want to meet this girl who's apparently so much better than the one you were planning to propose to. That's my mom for you, practical and straightforward to her core, no nonsense about complicated emotional drama." Sunday dinner turned out to be surprisingly pleasant and not awkward at all. My parents liked Luna immediately, probably because she actually asked them genuine questions about their lives and interests instead of monopolizing the conversation by talking about herself the entire time, which is what Chloe had always done during family visits. By the time we got to dessert, my mom was showing Luna embarrassing childhood photo albums, and my dad was telling his collection of terrible dad jokes that Luna politely laughed at. She was fitting into my family naturally and effortlessly. As we were getting ready to leave, my mom pulled me aside privately. She's much better for you than Chloe ever was, she said bluntly. I always thought Chloe was a bit much, but I didn't want to say anything while you were together. Coming from my eternally diplomatic mother who never said anything negative about anyone, that was practically a declaration of war against Chloe. I thought that the drama was finally starting to die down and that we could move forward peacefully. Chloe had gone surprisingly quiet on social media. No more victim posts, no more rants about betrayal and toxic family members. I should have known that this quiet period just meant she was planning something bigger and more dramatic. Last week, I got a warning text from one of our mutual friends. Heads up, Chloe's on her way to your office. She looks really pissed. I immediately called down to the security desk to warn them, but she had already managed to talk her way past the front desk reception. She had apparently claimed that she was delivering a surprise lunch for me, which was plausible enough that they let her through without checking with me first. Next thing I knew, she was standing in the doorway of my department cubicle area, holding a large manila envelope and looking like she was barely containing her rage. "We need to talk," she announced loudly enough that my entire team turned around to stare at us. She was clearly trying to cause a scene and embarrass me in front of my coworkers. I quickly walked her to the break room, trying to minimize the spectacle and get her away from my colleagues before she could do any more damage to my professional reputation. "What the hell are you doing here, Chloe?" I asked once we had some privacy. She slapped the envelope down on the break room table dramatically. "You need to see these," she said with obvious satisfaction. Inside the envelope were printouts of text messages that were supposedly between Luna and her cousin Katie. They were dated from the week right after I had first reached out to Luna for coffee. The messages contained things like, "This is the perfect revenge," and "He has no idea he's just a pawn in our game." There were screenshots where Luna had supposedly said that she was just using me to get back at Chloe, that she didn't actually care about me as a person, and that the whole relationship was just an elaborate setup designed to hurt her sister. "She's playing you," Chloe said triumphantly, watching my face carefully for any reaction. "This was all planned from the very beginning. She doesn't actually care about you at all." "How did you get these messages?" I asked, staring at the printouts and feeling sick to my stomach. "Katie felt guilty about helping with this scheme," Chloe explained. "She sent them to me last night because she couldn't live with herself anymore." But something about the whole thing wasn't adding up properly. Katie and Chloe barely spoke to each other under normal circumstances. Why would Katie suddenly feel the need to confess to Chloe? And these messages, while they looked authentic at first glance, didn't really sound like Luna's voice or writing style. They were too dramatic, too cartoonishly vindictive. "I'll need to talk to Luna about this," I said finally, not wanting to reveal my suspicions to Chloe. Her face lit up with triumph, like she had just won some kind of victory. "Of course you do," she said smugly, "and when you find out that I'm right about everything, you know where to find me." She left the office clearly believing that she had just successfully blown up my relationship with Luna, and that I would come crawling back to her within a matter of hours. I sat there in the break room for a while, staring at those printed messages and feeling genuinely sick to my stomach. Even though something felt off about them, the possibility that Luna had been playing me from the beginning was devastating to consider. After everything I'd been through with Chloe's lies and manipulation, the thought that I might have walked straight into another deceptive situation was almost too much to bear. I called Luna and asked if she could meet me for lunch, telling her that something important had happened that we needed to discuss. She could probably hear the tension in my voice because she immediately agreed and suggested we meet at a quiet cafe near my office. An hour later, we were sitting across from each other at a small table, and I showed her the messages without any comment or explanation. I wanted to see her genuine, unfiltered reaction before I said anything that might influence her response. She read through them carefully, her expression shifting from initial confusion to growing anger as she processed what she was looking at. "These are completely fake," she said immediately, her voice filled with indignation. "I never wrote any of this bullshit." "They look pretty convincing," I said, playing devil's advocate even though I was starting to believe her. "Tyler, look at the dates on these messages," she said, pointing to the timestamps. "May 16th. I was at a medical conference in Las Vegas that entire week." "How can you be so sure?" I asked. "Because my entire department was there for the pediatric nursing conference. Check my Instagram if you don't believe me." I pulled up her Instagram profile on my phone and scrolled back to May. Sure enough, there were multiple posts from Las Vegas during those exact dates. Hotel room selfies with her coworkers, photos of her conference badge and registration materials, group dinner pictures with her colleagues. "And look at this message supposedly sent on the 17th, she continued, getting more animated as she built her case. "It says it was sent at 2 p.m. I was literally on stage giving a presentation to 300 people at that exact time. There's video footage of it." She pulled up the conference website on her phone and navigated to the recorded session section. There she was, clear as day, giving a 45-minute presentation on pediatric care protocols. The timestamp was clearly visible in the corner of the video. "Chloe made these up," Luna said firmly, "and she did a pretty shitty job of it too." I felt a massive wave of relief wash over me, followed immediately by anger at Chloe for trying to manipulate me with fabricated evidence. She came to my workplace with fake screenshots and tried to cause a scene in front of my coworkers. "She's getting desperate," Luna said matter-of-factly. "She can't stand that her plan completely backfired on her. She can't handle the fact that you're actually happy without her, that I'm happy with you, and that for once in her life, she has to face real consequences for her selfish actions." That evening, we decided that enough was enough. The petty games and manipulation tactics needed to end once and for all. We went to Chloe's apartment together, presenting a united front and planning to put an end to this harassment campaign. Chloe opened the door looking smugly satisfied, probably thinking that I was there to grovel and beg for her forgiveness after discovering Luna's supposed betrayal. The smirk completely vanished from her face when she saw Luna standing beside me. "The messages are fake," I said without any preamble or pleasantries. "Luna was at a medical conference with hundreds of witnesses. There's video evidence of her giving presentations during the times she was supposedly texting about revenge plots. You brought fake screenshots to my workplace and tried to cause a scene in front of my colleagues," I continued. "This harassment campaign ends now." Chloe's face went through several different emotions in rapid succession: surprise that we had figured out her deception, anger that her plan had failed, and then a desperate attempt at feigned innocence. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, trying to sound confused. "Katie sent those messages to me. If they're fake, then she's the one who created them, not me." "Stop!" Luna interrupted sharply. "Just stop with the lies." "We talked to Katie," I said, which was actually a bluff since we hadn't contacted her yet. "She never sent you anything." Chloe's face completely crumpled when she realized we had called her bluff, confirming our suspicions that she had fabricated the entire thing herself. "You need to stop this behavior immediately," I continued firmly. "No more showing up at my workplace, no more fake evidence and manufactured drama, no more social media attacks and character assassination attempts. It's over, Chloe. Our relationship is finished." "You ruined everything," she whispered, suddenly looking small and defeated. "We were supposed to get married and have a family together. We had plans." "Then you threw it all away," Luna corrected her before I could respond. "The moment you decided Tyler wasn't enough for you, the moment you thought you could have everything on your own terms without any consequences for your actions." "I loved him," Chloe insisted, tears starting to form in her eyes. "No," I said firmly. "You loved what I provided for you. The stability, the financial security, the attention when you wanted it, and the space when you didn't. You loved having me as a reliable backup plan while you explored other options." We left Chloe standing there in her doorway, looking broken and defeated. As we walked back to our cars in the parking lot, I felt like a massive weight had been lifted off my shoulders. The mind games, the constant drama, the perpetual feeling of looking over my shoulder waiting for the next attack, it was finally done. That night, we systematically blocked Chloe's newest email account and any phone numbers belonging to friends who might be helping her try to contact us. We eliminated every possible avenue she could use to reach us and continue her harassment campaign. Then we did something that felt symbolic and hopeful. We bought plane tickets to Italy for a summer vacation. It represented a fresh start, a new chapter in our lives that was completely disconnected from all the toxic drama of the past. 2 days later, Chloe sent one final email from yet another new account that she had created. But this message was completely different from all her previous attempts at contact. There were no accusations, no manipulation tactics, no dramatic proclamations or threats. It was just 4 simple sentences. "I'm sorry, I see what I did now. I hope you're both happy together. Please don't contact me again." I didn't respond to the message. There was nothing left to say between us, and any response would just open the door for more drama and manipulation. Sometimes silence is the most powerful response you can give. Looking back now, I sometimes think about how differently things could have gone if Chloe had approached our relationship problems with honesty and genuine communication, instead of manipulation and unilateral decision-making. If she had actually talked to me about her feelings and concerns, instead of secretly planning to blow up our relationship so she could pursue her ex-boyfriend. But then I look at Luna sleeping peacefully beside me, and I realize that Chloe actually gave me the greatest gift possible. She freed me from a relationship that was built on shifting sand and manipulation, and gave me the opportunity to find something genuine and healthy and real. As for Chloe, the last I heard through the grapevine, she's dating some self-proclaimed relationship guru who runs workshops on conscious uncoupling and charges people hundreds of dollars to learn about authentic relationship dynamics. I genuinely wish her well from a distance, a very, very large distance. Life is weird sometimes. Karma is real, and sometimes the trash really does take itself out. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. And never underestimate the power of finding someone who actually wants the same things you want in a relationship.